Okay, what we're looking at today is This One Summer by Jillian Tamaki and Mariko Tamaki. And this book, even though it came out a little over 10 years ago, it stands as a benchmark today as slice of life comic storytelling. It's just so good at establishing tone, setting up atmosphere, introducing characters. And the reason I've been looking at this book so often lately is because in our graphic novel pro course, I keep coming back to it as a good example of all the things that we talk about in making comics. So if you remember my 12 commandments of comic making, this book does everything, perfectly. It's an exemplary example of comic book storytelling, word balloon placement, respecting the Z and making sure that the flow through the page works and that the reader never gets lost or confused. Things like controlling pace through panel structure, establishing shots. And so today what I thought we'd do is we'd break down the first 26 pages of this book, because that's what is available for free on the Amazon page for it, the reading sample. But I think 26 pages is a good sampling of the storytelling that's going on in this book. And I figured today we'd break down what makes This One Summer so good. Real quick, this video is sponsored by my eBay account. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but my bookshelf is kind of thinning out back there. Someday I'm going to be downsizing the house. We're going to be probably having a lot less space. Kids are moving out. And speaking of that, my daughter is graduating from college and getting married and moving out all at the same time. I don't have a ton of money. I want to help her out. And I was trying to figure out what should I do. And I was looking at these books and the idea came to me to sell them on eBay. I told her, listen, I'll pick out all the books that I'm willing to part with. You get to keep 100% of the money you make selling these on eBay. So that's what she's been doing. And she asked, can you post a link on YouTube about this? So here's Lucy herself.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I have shipped literally thousands of books for my dad over the years. Yours will get to you safe and sound.
I'm definitely not getting rid of these books because I don't love them. I just think it's going to be better, obviously, for her, and it's going to be better for me to kind of simplify and thin out that collection. But okay, link to my eBay account is below. Now let's get back to reviewing this comic. This first spread, we're starting off with two little vignettes, and it's almost as if the narrator of this story is recalling these from deep memory, just little pieces of memory. The crunch, you could see the sound effects right there as we see these feet walking through, and then we see a close-up of, it looks like a father carrying a child, and we have the word okay, and then so, and it just draws us down here. And the reason we're going down here is because this composition kind of starts down here with the crunch and the feet walking and brings us up here to where the light is on at the cabin, flowing through the page and also establishing with this big full page illustration of this world that we're now entering. So this is just a good intro to what is going to now become this. Owago Beach is this place. Contrast. It goes from this quiet moment to a moment of kind of ordered chaos. So we've got all the cars leaving the city, going out to the country or going out to the beach. And you know how it is on Fridays. Everybody wants to leave at the same time. We're just establishing atmosphere right now of what it was like to be a kid on vacation or starting off summer vacation. Then we get a close-up here of a comic page, and we see it goes dark to light, as if there's trees passing by the window. Kid isn't looking at the trees, but is looking at the comic. It goes from light to dark, and it's just a very personal type of way to show what this character is experiencing. And then we get our first image of the main character of the book, and this is just to establish, okay, here's the person telling us the story. So Owago Beach is the place. Start reading here. It brings us through this, come down here, panel, and then where my family goes every summer, ever since, and then forever. Okay, so we're just easing into the story here, and I think it's cool that we just have a blank spot right here. If you look on this page, we've got these blank areas here, just to know that we're kind of easing into the story and we're not being blasted with panel after panel, which is very much a deliberate choice by the storyteller here to show that this is like a nice, chill, vibey kind of experience that we're going to happen here. So now we get a close up of our protagonist here, and we see her sticking her thumb in her mouth, and then all of a sudden, bam! You can see how the eyes, the hand, everything is like pointing us down to this, and the mom is looking through the through the rearview mirror. Rose, fingers. So now we get the character's name. We know who the character is, the main character. We know her name. It's a great, clever way to, instead of like having a character come, what was your name again? You just have the mom say Rose, fingers, grabbing her attention. And then this panel is from her perspective, right? And we kind of go back and forth through this comic, seeing like we're looking at the character, but then seeing what the character is seeing a lot. Cut to the car. Now we're past all the traffic. We're going somewhere pretty remote. And we get another sort of establishing shot of what she's seeing through the car window. Okay. And then comes down here, a little bit of like character development with the dad. Looky here, I say, it's the turkey hatchery, right? So the dad's kind of a jokester. You know, he's saying, brings a tear to my eye. And then we get to see pretty much the dad from the girl's perspective again. Then we come to reaction shot, girl laughs. So we see they have a good like relationship with each other where they understand each other. And then outside the car, as the car travels past, and we see kind of what he's talking about there. Again, lots of detail in here in the trees and everything, to really show that this is a place that exists in real life. Okay, we got another full page spread here as well. I like that we have a blank space right here, and that's just to imply that even more time has passed. We're drawing our eye down to here. This car, our eyes brought down here, going into this darkness of what is going to be Awago Beach. Then we come down here, front view of the car, and that's pulling us into these panels as well. Now, a little bit more storytelling here. My dad says Awago is a place where beer grows on trees and everyone can sleep in until 11. And then we hear Dad saying, almost there, girls. These are all images to kind of just show us what it's like to be on Awago Beach. We see the light filtering, dappled light filtering through the trees. We see people just walking down the street, a couple of teenagers there, and then another establishing shot of essentially the area where a lot of the action happens. This is where cabins are. This is where the general store is. They're going to come back to this place a lot. So this is another intentional thing where let's show a big overview of, or a third person view of what this place is going to be, just to really establish like placement and staging of everything. Cars come in this way, general store over here, little house back there. And then we get to see it from the character's perspective, just to bring it back from this third person to a first person POV. Okay, next page. Again, more establishing shot as we're getting deeper into the woods. The car's going up here. Mom says Awago reminds her of the cottage she had with her parents. And then the car pulls up. Both of these panels are sort of establishing, you know, where this house is in relationship to the environment a little bit. Now we're really establishing what her personality is like. She's soaking in the environment. And then we come up to these three panels right here. And these are really, really well done. A nice little character moment where she comes in, she's keeping everything together, and it's finally time after this long car ride that she could just relax. And so she does this little twirly twip and then flop on the bed. And I just want to point out what nice little silhouettes these are, right, of this character. And anytime you're drawing a character, you just want to make it as clear as possible. Just have nice, clean, clear silhouettes, which I just think adds to the readability of it and doesn't get your reader confused of anything. Okay, so she flops on the bed, and so now we're going to have this top-down view, and again, sort of establishing shot of the layout of the bedroom. Then we get to the parents having a little moment where they're going back and forth with each other, and showing kind of how cramped this little cottage is that they're in. You could see these panels are a little bit claustrophobic. And if you've ever spent a weekend or a summer in one of these like smaller cottages that you might have next to a beach or up in the woods, you're really in close with each other. And I think it's a nice deliberate choice to make these panels show just how tight everything is there. You could see there's a little bit of tension between the parents, and I think that's also reflected in the composition of these panels. Another little thing here, the mom's coughing. That might be setting up for something later in the book. She might be sick or something like that. We don't know yet, but it's a nice little detail. And if you go back to one of our commandments, is know the ending before you start. And that way, once you know how things end, you can start to pepper in and sprinkle in little foreshadowing, little things that happen early on that maybe the reader doesn't know the answer to, but they're going to want to read more because that's an open curiosity loop that I need to close somehow. So here she is. She's going to grab her bike. Just nice little moments here where we see her unlock the lock. It could have gone straight to this panel here where she's just on a bike and leaving. They're working with the pace and they're slowing things down, and so we're taking more panels to show just how slow moving this place is that they're living in. Okay, so she gets on her bike and she heads off, and you can see here this is just a nice composition where we've got a little silhouette here, we've got an area of high contrast, and she's off the page and on to the next one. Beautiful little compositional things happening here. We've got the rule of thirds all over the place. We've got a nice silhouette here. No need to draw a full background here because it would just complicate this drawing a little bit more. But here we do have a full background. I want to point out here a beautiful use of lights over darks and darks over lights. So we've got this white over the darkness back here, and this darkness of her pants over like this mid-gray tone of the grass here. Same happening here. Dark pants over light, light shirt over a darker background, just to make sure this character reads really well over these busy environments. Again, these 3 panels here, didn't have to spend time doing this. She didn't have to pick up this rock. Maybe this rock plays a role later. We don't know. But I think it's just cool that we take a moment, that this girl isn't in a hurry. If she sees a cool rock, she's going to stop, pick it up. And that's also character development as well. All right, so this is another big establishing shot. And this shows the other main location. This is where a friend of her lives. And so we're going to kind of establish the staging here of where the road is compared to the house. If we're ever going to come back here to this location, it's just nice to have established this already. Okay, so she comes here, and this whole time we've been we haven't seen her face. We've been far away from her. We've been back view of her. And then as we get closer to human interaction, we get closer. And really this reaction to her, we can tell a lot about a character by how people react to that character. And so I think it's cool that the focus of this page comes to this reaction of her here. Okay, and then we have a little back and forth with these 2 characters. And I want to point out here too that the background totally fades away into just pure white, right? And I think for these particular panels, if you did any bit of background back here, it would, because they have these patterns, because it really is about these character moments, it would just clutter and take away from these nice little compositions of what's happening here. Her grabbing the face, this hug with this nice little expression here, and then the 3 expressions happening right here. Now we do have background and context with of what this apartment or what this cabin looks like here. You could see here, there's a picture not on the wall but leaning against the wall. There's a box here with tape on it with stuff still into it. So either they just arrived or they're not super organized. But this is all character development here, just to establish what kind of people these are, right? And then we come to this panel. We've got a close-up on Crocs going downstairs. which implies that we're changing scenes, changing locations. And then we pull out to show, okay, now they're coming to the beach area. And then we establish here in the background, we've got some beach happening here. And as you look in the next coming pages, a really subtle thing here that's happening is you've got these clouds that are going diagonal this way, right? Diagonal. They're all facing this way. And then for some reason, they're going this way here and this way here. And then they go back to this way. And that's such a small detail, but it's really good in grounding the viewer as to where they are in placement to the characters, right? As you can see, anytime the camera or the POV flips around the characters to the other side of them, the clouds follow suit. They shift diagonals. And if you'd kept, if the artist had kept all of the clouds going in the same direction, it might be confusing, like, wait, are they going one way or the other? Are they going down the beach versus up the beach? And I think it's just a nice little detail that that makes this a little bit more believable. I want to point something else out here too. It's the 180 rule, right? And we get this from film, but it works in comics as well. So in this panel, it's established that Rose is on the right-hand side of the page and her friend is on the left-hand side of the page. If you look at every one of these panels, she stays on the left, she stays on the right, left, right, just to not confuse the reader and to help it flow even better. Left, right, until she goes running off in that direction. And you can see, her running past is showing, okay, they're changing positions here a little bit. But then we go back to left, right, okay? So it's just a nice little touch here that I think was very intentional, but you might not notice it if you're not paying attention. All right, now this whole spread, the purpose of this spread is to introduce these characters, which are going to play a role in the rest of the book. And if you'll notice that these two characters, because we're introducing them now, they get a full body or almost full body shot, a good frontal look at both of their faces, so we can put them to memory, commit them to memory. And the main characters, their heads are getting cropped off. They're not really the focal point of this. Their purpose in this scene is to introduce us to the personality of these characters. Also, this is one of those country stores or these little shops that you have in these small communities out in the middle of nowhere, and they're small and a little claustrophobic, and so these panels also are tight and cropped in really tight, just to emphasize that you're not going to see a third person overview look of the entire store, because that's not the mood, that's not the atmosphere that we're going for in this particular scene. Okay, we're still in the shop, and the two characters leave, and they go out to a new location, and so we need another establishing shot to show where they're at. And again, we have this character on the right, Rose on the left, or vice versa. We now have a POV shot, what we're seeing Rose is seeing, and she's watching her friend sort of mess around with this gummy foot. And then we see her reaction here. And notice she's facing this way, she's facing this way, and then she stays on the left, she stays on the right. So we're never lost, even though the camera is going back and forth, or the POV is going back and forth from these two characters. We're still maintaining that 180 rule. Okay, and on this page, our character remains on the left. This one remains on the right, just so that we're not confused. Same here. Even though we've changed sides of the picnic table, we're still maintaining where these characters are, just for good staging. Now, something is happening off panel here. So we pull out to kind of show these characters' reaction, and again, to show that we're pulling out to kind of see what they're seeing. And then we get their POV here, and a little close-up here of this couple kissing. And then she moves to the right, and she's now on the left. But that's doable, and that makes sense because she's in position. You can tell she got up and knelt over so she could lean in close to talk to her. And then we're seeing it from her perspective, and she holds up this gummy foot to kind of censor this this moment between these two, almost like she's grossed out about them kissing, or maybe she's curious and feels uncomfortable about it. But regardless of why she's doing that, this is very much a character moment that tells us a little bit more about Rose and who she is as a character. All right, you may have noticed that in this video I brought up the 12 commandments of making comics a bunch and referred to all the different rules that can help make your comic better and what made this comic so good. And if you're curious what those commandments or those rules are, these are lists that I've built over years of making comics. And every time I would come up with a little idea of like, oh, I don't want to forget that. That's something important that I want to remember next time I do a comic. I would just write it down. And after I had about a page of these notes, I decided to like boil them down to I tried to do 10, but I ended up having to do 12. And I actually made a video. You could check that out right here. All about the 12 commandments of comics, where I break them down individually and give examples for each one. So check that out. And if you like this type of video where I break down what makes a good comic so good, let me know in the comment section what comic you want me to do next.